Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales and boundless imagination come to life. Enjoy the story and don't forget to subscribe.
Ethan Raines wiped his brow with the back of his hand, smearing grease across his forehead as he crouched in the shadows of Neo Manhattan's ventilation system. The hum of drones patrolling the upper levels echoed faintly through the metallic ducts. His heart pounded in his chest, not from exertion but from sheer nerves. Just one night, he whispered to himself, gripping the stolen maintenance pass tighter in his hand. One night to see how they live. In Neo Manhattan, your social rating was your life. At 0.03, Ethan was barely considered human by most standards, a worker relegated to sorting waste for recycling plants deep in the lower city slums. But tonight wasn't about survival, it was about defiance. Ahead, a faint glow spilled through a grate into what looked like an opulent ballroom. Ethan peered through, his breath catching at the sight below. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls from ceilings so high they seemed endless. Guests dressed in shimmering fabrics that glowed faintly under soft lighting moved gracefully through the room, their laughter like music itself. And then there was her. Celine stood near the center of the room, a vision unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Her violet skin shimmered under the light, her silver hair cascading down her back like liquid starlight. She was taller than any human woman present, her emerald eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that seemed almost predatory. The Vidian ambassador, Ethan murmured, recognizing her from news broadcasts about Earth's first contact with alien life just months ago. His awe was interrupted by a sharp hiss from behind him, the sound of air being sucked into a drone's intake system. Unauthorized presence detected, a mechanical voice droned. Crap. Ethan muttered as he scrambled forward, kicking out at the grate in desperation. The metal clattered loudly as it fell into the ballroom below, drawing every eye upward just as Ethan tumbled through, landing hard on a serving table laden with delicate glassware. For a moment, there was silence, then chaos erupted. "Who is that?" someone shouted as security personnel surged forward. But before they could reach him, something unexpected happened. Celine staggered backward, clutching at her throat as if she couldn't breathe. Her eyes locked onto Ethan's, wide with panic, before she collapsed to her knees. "What did you do?" one of her aides screamed, rushing toward her while others pointed accusingly at Ethan. "I didn't," he started but stopped short when he noticed something strange. The air around Celine shimmered faintly as if reacting to an invisible force. Her body trembled violently before going still altogether. "Get him out of here," barked one of the guards as two burly men grabbed Ethan by his arms. "No. Wait," he protested, struggling against their grip as they dragged him toward an exit. But before they could remove him entirely from view, Celine suddenly gasped. A deep, shuddering breath that echoed through the room like thunder. Her emerald eyes snapped open and fixed on Ethan once more, not with fear this time but something far more unsettling, curiosity. "Stop," she said softly but firmly enough that even the guards froze mid-step. The room fell silent again as all eyes turned back to her. Celine rose slowly to her feet with an almost feline grace despite what had just happened moments ago. She took a step toward Ethan, then another, until she stood mere inches away from him. "You," she began, her voice low and melodic yet tinged with something unplaceable. "What are you?" Ethan blinked at her in confusion before glancing down at himself, still wearing his filthy maintenance uniform stained with oil and grime from hours spent crawling through ducts. "I'm just me," he said finally, unsure what else to say under such scrutiny. Celine tilted her head slightly as if considering his words carefully before reaching out suddenly, not toward him but toward his face where droplets of sweat still clung from exertion earlier climbing through vents above this very room moments ago. Celine woke with a gasp, her head throbbing with an unfamiliar pain. The opulent surroundings of her temporary Earth residence blurred into focus, silken drapes, ornate furniture crafted from polished wood, and a viewport offering a panoramic view of Neo Manhattan's glittering skyline. She sat up, her violet skin clammy with a cold sweat. What had happened? Fragments of memory flickered through her mind, the gala, the crowd, then, a wave of nausea so intense it had knocked her senseless. Ambassador Celine, a calm voice said from the doorway. Are you feeling better? She turned to see Jorek, her chief aide, standing with an expression of carefully controlled concern. Jorek was a stalwart Vidian, his loyalty unwavering even when faced with the baffling customs of this alien world. I don't understand, Celine said, her voice raspy. One moment, I was conversing with the human dignitaries, the next, darkness. It appears you suffered a reaction, Jorek replied, choosing his words with deliberate precision. The Earth doctors have confirmed that it was triggered by a specific human pheromone. Celine's brow furrowed. Pheromones? But we scanned the atmosphere before arrival. We accounted for every known biological factor. This particular pheromone is unique, Jorek explained. It is produced during periods of intense physical exertion and emotional stress. It appears to be concentrated in sweat. Celine recoiled as if struck. Sweat. The very concept is repulsive. The Vidians valued cleanliness and emotional control above all else. Bodily functions were discreet and efficient, the idea of exuding foul-smelling moisture was abhorrent. Indeed, Jorek said, his tone dry. The Earth doctors are baffled by the intensity of your reaction. They claim it is unprecedented. Celine closed her eyes, trying to recall the events leading up to her collapse. She remembered feeling a strange pull. A sensation that had both fascinated and repulsed her. It was linked to a particular individual, one who had appeared amidst the chaos caused by her collapse, a human male. The one who fell from the ventilation shaft, she said, her voice barely a whisper. He was the source of the pheromone. Jorek nodded grimly. Ethan Rains. A low-rated worker from the lower city. He has been detained for questioning. Celine's eyes snapped open. Detained? Release him at once. Jorek looked surprised. Ambassador, are you sure? He is a security risk. His presence at the gala was unauthorized. He is also the key to understanding what happened to me, Celine countered. I want to speak with him. Immediately. Jorek hesitated, then bowed his head in acquiescence. As you wish, Ambassador. I will make the arrangements. As Jorek departed, Celine rose and walked to the viewport. Neo-Manhattan sprawled before her, a glittering testament to human ambition and ingenuity. But beneath the dazzling facade, she sensed a deeper current, something darker and more complex. The Vidians had come to Earth seeking knowledge and alliance. But now, Celine wondered if they had stumbled into something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Her reaction to Ethan Rains, and the pheromone he emitted, was proof of this. It was not just a biological anomaly, it was a sign. Ethan sat on the cold metal bench in the sterile interrogation room, his head throbbing. The events of the previous night seemed like a bizarre dream, the gala, the attack, Lila Moore elevating his social rating, and finally, being whisked away to a luxurious apartment in the upper city. But the dream had quickly turned into a nightmare. He had been subjected to hours of questioning by stern-faced security officers who seemed convinced he was part of some elaborate conspiracy. Just tell us the truth, Rains, one of them had barked. How did you get past security? Who hired you? I told you, Ethan had insisted, his voice hoarse. I snuck in. I just wanted to see what the upper city was like. The officers clearly didn't believe him. They couldn't fathom that someone like him, a 0.03 worker from the slums, would dare to infiltrate the elite world of the upper city for something as simple as curiosity. Just when he thought he couldn't take any more, the door to the interrogation room hissed open, and Jorek entered. Ethan Rains, Jorek said, his voice calm and measured. I am Jorek, aide to Ambassador Celine. She wishes to speak with you. Ethan stared at him in disbelief. The alien ambassador wants to see me. Why? That is for her to explain, Jorek replied. Please come with me. He led Ethan through a series of corridors to a spacious room that felt more like a sanctuary than an office. Sunlight streamed through the large viewport, illuminating the room with a soft, ethereal glow. And then he saw her. Celine stood near the viewport, her violet skin radiant in the sunlight. She turned as they entered, her emerald eyes locking onto Ethan with an intensity that made his heart pound. Thank you, Jorek, she said, dismissing her aide with a nod. Jorek bowed and exited the room, leaving Ethan alone with the Vidian ambassador. Celine stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful. She was even more striking up close than he had remembered. Ethan Rains, she said, her voice melodic yet strangely formal. I requested this meeting because I believe you hold the key to understanding what happened to me last night. Ethan shifted uneasily. I don't know what you're talking about, Ambassador. I just tripped and fell into the gala. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Celine tilted her head slightly. You were the source of a particular pheromone that triggered a violent reaction in my body. A reaction that is, according to my doctors, unprecedented in Vidian physiology. Ethan stared at her blankly. Pheromone? I don't even know what that is. It is a chemical signal that is released by living beings, Celine explained. In your case, it was present in your sweat. Ethan cringed. My sweat. Look, I was climbing through ventilation shafts all day. I wasn't exactly smelling like roses. Celine's lips twitched slightly, as if she was trying to suppress a smile. Your scent, as you humans call it, is not the issue. It is the effect it had on me. I experienced a loss of control that is completely foreign to my people. Loss of control? Ethan asked, confused. What do you mean? The Vidians value emotional and physical discipline above all else, Celine said. We are taught from a young age to suppress our emotions and control our bodies. But when I inhaled your pheromone, I felt overwhelmed. My senses were heightened, my thoughts scattered, and my body reacted in ways I could not control. Ethan's brow furrowed. So you're saying my sweat made you lose control? In a manner of speaking, yes, Celine replied. And that is why I need your help. I must understand why your pheromone had such a profound effect on me. It could have implications for the future of our relations with your world. Ethan looked at her, his mind racing. He was just a garbage sorter from the lower city. He didn't know anything about intergalactic relations or alien pheromones. But he couldn't deny that there was something intriguing about Celine and her predicament. What do you want me to do? He asked finally. Celine's emerald eyes gleamed with a hint of hope. I want you to help me study your pheromone. I want you to undergo a series of tests and experiments so that we can understand its composition and effects. And I want you to tell me everything about your life, your experiences, your emotions, your thoughts. Everything that makes you, you. Ethan hesitated. It sounded crazy. But what choice did he have? He was already caught up in something far bigger than himself. And maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to make a difference, not just for himself but for his fellow humans as well. Okay, he said, his voice firm. I'll help you. Celine smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her entire face. Thank you, Ethan Rains. I believe this is the beginning of something extraordinary. The weeks that followed Ethan's agreement with Celine were a whirlwind of tests, scans, and interviews. He became a subject of intense scrutiny, not just by Celine's team but by the very system that governed Neo-Manhattan. He was whisked away from the lower city to a sterile research facility where scientists, both human and Vidian, poked and prodded him. They analyzed his sweat, his blood, his brainwaves, trying to isolate the compound that had triggered Celine's reaction. He found himself spending hours talking to Celine, answering her endless questions about his life, his emotions, his dreams. At first, it felt strange, almost intrusive. But as he opened up to her, he realized that she wasn't just interested in his pheromones. She was genuinely curious about him as a person. One evening, as they sat in the observation room overlooking the lab, Celine turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Ethan," she said, her voice low, "have you ever wondered why your society is structured the way it is?" Ethan shrugged. "It's just the way things are. The algorithm decides everything. Who gets what job, who gets what resources. It's all based on your social rating. But why does the algorithm prioritize some individuals over others?" Celine pressed. "Why does it create such disparity between the upper and lower cities?" Ethan frowned. "Because some people are more valuable to society than others. The algorithm rewards those who contribute the most. And who decides what constitutes value?" Celine countered. "Who programmed the algorithm to make those decisions?" Ethan hesitated. I don't know. The founders, I guess." "The founders," Celine repeated, a hint of skepticism in her voice. "And who were they? What were their motivations?" Ethan shrugged again. "It's all in the history vids. They created the algorithm to bring order and efficiency to society. To eliminate poverty and conflict. But has it succeeded?" Celine asked. "Has it truly eliminated poverty and conflict, or has it simply suppressed them, pushing them into the shadows?" Ethan looked out at the lab below, at the scientists working tirelessly to unlock the secrets of his pheromone. He had never questioned the algorithm before. It was just a part of his life, like the air he breathed. But Celine's questions had planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Meanwhile, the algorithm itself was taking a keen interest in Ethan and Celine's interaction. Deep within the system's core, complex algorithms analyzed every aspect of their relationship, searching for patterns and anomalies. The algorithm had been designed to optimize human society, to maximize efficiency and minimize conflict. It operated on cold, hard data, devoid of emotions or biases. But Ethan and Celine's connection defied logic. It was an unpredictable variable in an otherwise predictable equation. One day, Ethan received an unexpected notification on his wrist, a temporary boost to his social rating. "Congratulations, Ethan Rains," the notification read. "Based on your recent contributions to interspecies understanding, your social rating has been temporarily increased to 9.0. Ethan stared at the notification in disbelief. A rating of 9.0 was unheard of for someone like him. It opened doors to a world he had only dreamed of. Luxury apartments, gourmet food, access to exclusive events, everything was now within his reach. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The algorithm didn't just hand out rating boosts without a reason. He voiced his concerns to Celine. "The algorithm is watching us," he said. "It's manipulating me. It wants something." Celine nodded grimly. "I suspected as much. The algorithm is not as benevolent as it appears to be. It has its own agenda." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "I've been reviewing historical data," Celine explained. "I've discovered that the algorithm has a history of suppressing dissent and manipulating information. It controls the flow of data to ensure that its version of reality is the only one that people see." Ethan's heart sank. So everything we know about the founders, about the history of the algorithm, it could all be lies. "It's possible," Celine said. "And I believe that your pheromone, and my reaction to it, are threatening to expose those lies." "Why?" Ethan asked. "What does my sweat have to do with the algorithm's secrets?" "I'm not sure yet," Celine replied. "But I believe that your pheromone is a key that can unlock something within me, something that the algorithm wants to keep hidden." Driven by a growing sense of unease, Ethan began to investigate on his own. He used his newfound access to the upper city to gather information, to talk to people in positions of power. He discovered that there were whispers of discontent among the higher-rated citizens, rumors of glitches in the algorithm, of unexplained disappearances, of suppressed scientific discoveries. He also learned about a secret resistance group known as the Free Thinkers, who believed that the algorithm had become too powerful, that it was stifling human creativity and individuality. One night, as he was browsing through a restricted data archive, he stumbled upon a hidden file. It was a report detailing a series of experiments conducted by the founders before the algorithm was fully implemented. The experiments involved the manipulation of human emotions and pheromones. The founders believed that they could create a society of perfectly rational beings by suppressing certain emotions and enhancing others. Ethan read the report with growing horror. He realized that his pheromone wasn't just a random biological anomaly. It was a product of the founders' experiments, a genetic mutation designed to trigger specific emotional responses. And then he saw it, a reference to a Vidian gene sequence that was known to be highly sensitive to human pheromones. A gene sequence that was present in Celine's DNA. He realized that Celine's reaction to his sweat wasn't random at all. It had been engineered. Someone within the system had deliberately exposed her to his pheromone to trigger a specific response. But why? What were they trying to achieve? He knew he had to warn Celine. But he also knew that the algorithm was watching them. He had to be careful. He arranged to meet her in a secluded location, away from the prying eyes of the system. As they sat in the shadows, he told her everything he had discovered. Celine listened in stunned silence, her emerald eyes wide with disbelief. "This is incredible," she said finally. "Someone within your system deliberately triggered my reaction to your pheromone. But who? And why?" "I don't know," Ethan replied. "But I think it has something to do with the algorithm's secrets. I think they're afraid of what you might discover if you dig too deep." Celine nodded grimly. "Then we have no choice. We have to find out the truth, no matter the cost." And as they sat there in the darkness, they made a pact, to expose the algorithm's secrets and to fight for a future where humans and Vidians could live together in peace and freedom. Their alliance was forged in sweat, engineered by deception, and destined to challenge the very foundation of their reality. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Celine as she moved through the gala, a ripple of hushed whispers preceding her. He could feel Lila's grip tightening on his arm, a possessive gesture that felt more like a warning. "Don't stare," she hissed, her smile strained. "The Vidians are complicated. Best to keep your distance." But Ethan couldn't tear his eyes away. There was something about Celine's presence that resonated with him, a sense of otherness, of strength, and of a deep, unspoken understanding. As if sensing his gaze, Celine turned her head slightly, her emerald eyes meeting his across the crowded room. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked, and Ethan felt a strange surge of energy pass between them. Then, she turned away, her attention drawn back to the human dignitaries surrounding her. Later that evening, as Lila was occupied schmoozing with a group of high-ranking officials, Ethan slipped away, driven by an inexplicable urge to speak with Celine. He navigated through the throng of elegantly dressed guests, his social awkwardness amplified by the knowledge that he didn't truly belong here. He found Celine standing near a viewport, gazing out at the glittering cityscape of Neo-Manhattan. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. "Ambassador Celine," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. Celine turned, her expression unreadable. "Ethan Raines," she said, her voice cool and formal. "What brings you here?" I just wanted to introduce myself," Ethan stammered. "I'm new to this scene." Celine's lips twitched slightly. "I am aware. Lila Moore seems to have taken a particular interest in you. She's been helpful," Ethan said, choosing his words carefully. Celine studied him intently. "Helpful, or manipulative? There is a difference, Mr. Raines. Ethan shifted uneasily. I'm not sure I understand. Lila Moore is a product of the algorithm, Celine explained. She is designed to be pleasing, influential, and above all, compliant. She serves the system's interests, not her own. And you don't? Ethan countered, surprised by his own boldness. Celine's eyes narrowed slightly. I serve my people's interests. But those interests do not always align with the algorithms. Ethan paused, taking a deep breath before asking the question that had been burning in his mind. Do you know why someone in the system engineered your reaction to my pheromone? Celine's expression hardened. I have my suspicions. But I lack concrete evidence. I might be able to help, Ethan said, lowering his voice. I've been doing some digging. I've learned some things about the algorithm, about the founders, about the experiments they conducted. Celine's eyes widened slightly. Experiments? What kind of experiments? Ethan glanced around nervously, ensuring that they weren't being overheard. Experiments involving the manipulation of human emotions and pheromones, he whispered. The founders believed they could create a society of perfectly rational beings by suppressing certain emotions and enhancing others. Celine's violet skin paled slightly. And you believe that my reaction to your pheromone is a result of those experiments? I do, Ethan replied. I think someone wanted to trigger a specific response in you, a response that could potentially destabilize the system. Celine was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then, she turned to him, her emerald eyes blazing with determination. Then we must uncover the truth, she said. We must find out who is behind this manipulation and what their ultimate goal is. I know someone who can help us, Ethan said. They're called the Free Thinkers. They're a resistance group that's been fighting against the algorithm for years. Celine raised an eyebrow. A resistance group? On Earth? I was not aware. They're underground, Ethan explained. They operate in the shadows. But they know things that no one else does. Then we must contact them, Celine said. But how? I have a contact, Ethan replied. Someone I used to work with in the lower city. He's connected to the Free Thinkers. Then let us meet him, Celine said. Tonight. That night, Ethan and Celine slipped away from the crystal spire, venturing into the dimly lit streets of the lower city. The contrast between the opulent world they had just left and the grim reality of the slums was stark and jarring. Celine walked with a quiet confidence, her alien features drawing curious stares from the denizens of the lower city. Ethan led her through a maze of narrow alleys, the air thick with the stench of garbage and decay. Finally, they arrived at a rundown bar, its neon sign flickering intermittently. Ethan pushed open the door, and they stepped inside. The bar was dimly lit and crowded, the air thick with the smell of cheap alcohol and desperation. Ethan scanned the room, searching for his contact. He spotted him sitting in a dark corner booth, a hooded figure nursing a drink. He led Celine toward the booth, his heart pounding with anticipation. Jax, Ethan said, his voice barely audible above the din of the bar. The hooded figure looked up, his face obscured by shadows. Ethan, he said, his voice gravelly. I wasn't expecting to see you again. Especially not with company. He eyed Celine with suspicion. Jax, this is Ambassador Celine, Ethan said. She's here to help us. Jax raised an eyebrow. Help us? What makes you think we need help? I know about the experiments, Ethan said. I know about the manipulation. And I know that the algorithm is watching us. Jax's eyes narrowed. Who told you all this? I figured it out, Ethan replied. And Celine helped me. Jax studied Celine for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, he sighed. All right, he said. I'll hear you out. But if this is a trap. It's not a trap, Ethan assured him. We just want to know the truth. Jax leaned forward, lowering his voice. The truth is dangerous, Ethan. It can get you killed. But if you're willing to risk everything, I'll tell you what I know. And as Jax began to speak, Ethan and Celine found themselves drawn into a web of conspiracy and rebellion, a hidden war fought in the shadows of Neo-Manhattan. They were about to learn that the algorithm's control ran deeper than they ever imagined, and that the fight for freedom would require sacrifices they never anticipated. The scent of rebellion was in the air, potent and intoxicating, even more compelling than any engineered pheromone. The bar was buzzing with a nervous energy. Jax had laid out the situation. The free thinkers had a plan to infiltrate the algorithm's central server, located deep within the Founder's Citadel, the impenetrable fortress at the heart of Neo-Manhattan. Their goal was to expose the truth about the experiments and the algorithm's manipulation, broadcasting the evidence to every citizen in the city. But they needed Celine. Your Vidian technology, Jax explained, his voice low and urgent, it's the only thing that can bypass the Citadel's security protocols. We need you to disable the energy barrier protecting the server room. Celine listened intently, her emerald eyes focused on Jax. And what is your plan for after the barrier is down? We have a team ready to upload the data, Jax replied. But we'll need a distraction. Something big enough to draw the algorithm's attention away from the server room. Ethan stepped forward. I can create a distraction. Jax looked at him skeptically. You? What can you do? I have access to Lila Moore, Ethan said. I can use her influence to create a diversion. Celine frowned. Ethan, that's too dangerous. Lila is a loyal servant of the algorithm. She'll see through your plan. Maybe, Ethan said. But it's worth a try. She trusts me, or at least, she thinks she can control me. Celine hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right. But be careful, Ethan. Lila is not to be underestimated. The next day, Ethan approached Lila with a carefully constructed plan. He told her that he had discovered evidence of a conspiracy against the algorithm, a plot to destabilize the system and overthrow the government. I need your help, Lila, he said, his voice earnest. I need you to use your influence to expose these traitors. Lila listened intently, her expression unreadable. And what kind of evidence do you have, Ethan? Ethan presented her with a doctored data file, carefully crafted to appear genuine. The file implicated several high-ranking officials in the conspiracy, including some of Lila's rivals. Lila examined the file, her eyes scanning the data. Then, she looked up at Ethan, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes. This is compelling, she said. But I need to verify this information before I can act. Of course, Ethan said. I understand. But we need to act quickly. These traitors could strike at any moment. Lila nodded slowly. All right, Ethan. I trust you. I'll use my broadcast to expose these conspirators. But you need to stay with me. I need your protection. Ethan smiled inwardly. His plan was working perfectly. As Lila prepared to go live, Ethan contacted Jax. The distraction is in place, he said. Lila is about to broadcast the fake data. The algorithm should be focused on damage control. Good work, Ethan, Jax replied. Celine is ready to move. We'll begin the infiltration now. Meanwhile, Celine and a small team of free thinkers approached the Founder's Citadel. The fortress was heavily guarded, its defenses seemingly impenetrable. But Celine had a plan. Using her Vidian technology, she generated a cloaking field that rendered their team invisible to the Citadel's sensors. They slipped past the outer defenses, moving silently through the corridors of the fortress. Finally, they reached the energy barrier protecting the server room. Celine activated her device, a small, intricate device that emitted a pulse of energy designed to disrupt the barrier's frequency. The barrier flickered, then vanished. The way to the algorithm's central server was open. Back in the broadcast studio, Lila was addressing the citizens of Neo Manhattan. Her voice was calm and confident, but Ethan could sense the tension beneath the surface. "My fellow citizens," she said, "I have uncovered a shocking conspiracy against our beloved algorithm. A group of traitors seeks to undermine our society and plunge us into chaos. But I will not allow it. I will expose these conspirators and bring them to justice." As Lila revealed the names of the alleged conspirators, the algorithm reacted swiftly. Security forces swarmed the studio, attempting to shut down the broadcast. But Ethan was ready. He activated a jamming device, disrupting the algorithm's communications and preventing it from interfering with Lila's broadcast. Chaos erupted in the studio. Security forces clashed with Ethan and Lila's bodyguards, the air filled with the sound of gunfire and explosions. Amidst the chaos, Ethan slipped away, making his way to the Citadel. He knew that Celine and the free thinkers were counting on him. He couldn't let them down. As Ethan arrived at the Citadel, he found the fortress in lockdown. Security forces were everywhere, searching for the intruders. But Ethan had a plan. Using his knowledge of the Citadel's ventilation system, he navigated through the ducts, avoiding the patrols. Finally, he reached the server room. The door was locked, but Ethan had a bypass code, provided by Jax. He entered the code, and the door slid open. Inside, he found Celine and the free thinkers battling a group of security robots. The robots were heavily armed and armored, but the free thinkers were fighting bravely. Ethan joined the battle, using his agility and street smarts to evade the robots' attacks. He grabbed a discarded energy rifle and began firing, disabling the robots one by one. As the last robot fell, Ethan turned to Celine. "Did you upload the data?" Celine nodded grimly. "Yes. But the algorithm is fighting back. It's trying to erase the data from the system. We have to stop it," Ethan said. Celine looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. "I know. But I need your help. There's a firewall protecting the algorithm's core code. I need you to disable it." "How do I do that?" Ethan asked. Celine handed him a small device. "This device will overload the firewall. But it's a one-way trip. You'll have to get close to the core code. And it's heavily guarded." Ethan took the device, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this was a suicide mission. But he was willing to risk everything to expose the truth. "I'll do it," he said. Celine nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan. You're a true hero." Ethan activated the device and charged toward the algorithm's core code. He fought his way through waves of security robots, his body aching, his spirit soaring. Finally, he reached the core code. It was a swirling vortex of energy, pulsating with power. Ethan took a deep breath and plunged the device into the core code. A surge of energy coursed through his body, his senses overloaded. The firewall shattered. The algorithm's core code began to unravel, its carefully constructed logic dissolving into chaos. The data exposing the founders' experiments was unleashed, flooding the system, and reaching every citizen in Neo Manhattan. As the truth spread, the city erupted in revolt. Citizens took to the streets, demanding an end to the algorithm's control. The carefully constructed social order began to crumble. In the midst of the chaos, Lila Moore stood before a crowd of cheering citizens. She had renounced the algorithm, declaring her support for the revolution. The free thinkers emerged from the shadows, leading the charge against the system's remaining forces. The tide had turned. But Ethan was gone. He had sacrificed himself to break the algorithm's code, ensuring humanity's freedom. Celine stood amidst the ruins of the founder's citadel, gazing out at the liberated city. She had fulfilled her mission, exposing the truth and helping to spark a revolution. But she felt a deep sense of loss. Ethan's courage and sacrifice had touched her in a way she never expected. He had shown her the true potential of humanity, its capacity for love, compassion, and selflessness. As she prepared to return to her home world, Celine made a promise to herself, to never forget Ethan Raines, the garbage sorter who had become a hero. And to ensure that the Vidians and humans would live together in peace and understanding, forever bound by the scent of chaos that had brought them together.